Everybody's like, why are we having these, 100-year floods or 200-year floods, 1,000-year floods? Well, 14% more water in the atmosphere might explain something, and it's going to even out, though. It is ocean water. It came from the ocean. It wasn't extra water like from a glacier or something. If you were talking about the floods, you would have to add all of these ideas. There was a comet that just went by the sun. We've had that probably sparked solar flares. Or at least interacted with it. And we know that solar flares, when we have a geomagnetic storm, affects cloud seeding as well.
Right.
So, and then you add Tonga, that was all of that ocean water put up that's extra, right? And then everybody's like, why are we having these, 100-year floods or 200-year floods, 1,000-year floods? Well, 14% more water in the atmosphere might explain something, and it's going to even out, though. It is ocean water. It came from the ocean. It wasn't extra water like from a glacier or something.
So you're saying this is to be expected if you know this type of history, but also there's possibility for people who know this is happening to take advantage of it.
Yeah, I don't see why not. If you knew that there was more moisture available and your cloud seeding programs might not work as well as you want them, it may work better knowing that there's more moisture in the atmosphere, just for the conspiracy theorists.
Yeah.
What is this this currency slide that you have? It says currency is used predominantly in commerce since 1450, and it shows that every currency lasts about 100 years.
Right, and then you start to overlay it with the longer-term solar cycles here and the different, if you're going to look at Schwab cycles or de Vries cycles, you start to see this overlap of at least a slice of time from 17 to 1900, when you're hitting those low periods, it seems that the reserve currency changes. Now, if we're coming into this exact same cycle once again, and we are coming to this low point where almost every space agency out there is forecasting a grand solar minimum or extreme low solar activity as we step off of solar cycle 25 coming into 26. They're off by one cycle, but then again, with this amount of solar activity, nobody really got it right this time either with the exceptional amount of ramp up. So if we're really following this and the energetics are understood by those that don't generally talk about it to the public or allow the public to know, that in the energetic cycle would also signal the end of a reserve currency period, then we're starting to see that, the formation of the BRICS right now. We're moving into a different currency itself. So I'm just wondering why. This is an anecdotal side point here, that these cycles, energetic cycles, match up with currencies and the lifetime of a currency on a reserve status.
Interesting. And now you've got the BRICS nations launching a brand new currency.
Why now?
Political opportune moment? I don't
Energetic change moment, could be both.
But the energetic change, does that mean that powerful governments are recognizing the change and intentionally launching new currencies? Or is it just that it creates a dynamic, a shift in power in different regions of the planet that will amplify one group over another, regardless of what group is there?
Right, depending amount of food production for those countries as well. Because a civilization without food is no civilization. The basic, if you bring it down to a basic, if a human doesn't eat, there is literally nothing called civilization. So food is the most important thing. We can talk about economy, and we could talk about, business and government, but without food, there is literally nothing on this planet that can be structured. That's the base building block that everything moves forward from, is food.
Can we predict food production in BRICS nations right now? Is the yield going to increase?
I would say yes, if they turn North Africa and the Sahel into a new growing area, and the amount of investment that would be required to restart a global economy on the debt-based system, taking North Africa and the Sahel from zero to where we are in America and what we sit at in our grow belts across the United States and Canada. Imagine the amount of trillions and trillions of dollars that would be required for the roads, the irrigation systems. And then how would you pay all these people that come from around the world to work there? Well, you would pay them in cryptocurrency. You would pay them in stable coins that would have a value of, I don't care if you came from Chad or South Africa or America or Argentina, that you go back and you still have that 1=1. And you see this rapid implementation of cryptocurrencies across. I mean, they're going to use for payment systems as well as investment. I really believe if we're going to lose crop production, 45 north and above, and a lot of areas on the planet have far less crop yields, we're going to have to make that up elsewhere for 8 billion people to survive. So where would you put that? But remember, we have to restart the global economy.
Can they restart Africa and start growing there within our lifetime? Is that something?
It's absolutely, if the rainfall patterns continue to increase at the rate they are now, and they tap the Nubian sandstone aquifer and other aquifers beneath there, and get that underground water resource coupled with the above ground increases, absolutely yes.
It would change everything.
That would absolutely.
change everything. It's a crazy thought.
It's larger than the United States and Canada combined as a growing area for what we consider crop production.
Wow.
And a double rotation crop, because where it sits with the sunlight patterns there, we get 2 yields out of that versus
Who's going
one.
to be growing it? Is it going to be some terrible poison seeded?
It'll probably be GMO, yeah, Bill
Monsanto,
Gates. You know, this is kind of where me and him intersect. He's following all of these trends on grain production, and then I'm scamming through the articles, and it's just article after article about shutting down farmers, shutting down private ownership of farms, shutting down people's ability to grow
America?
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you see it constantly. It's not just here, it's in Europe too. Like they're literally telling farmers, paying them to grow flowers and stuff instead of growing food. And then you have the major grow zones like the Ukraine and what's going on there. So you know that production is going to be going down, and even possibly contaminated in the near future. If you guys remember Chernobyl, that was only a 100-year cap on that thing that they put, and they've admitted since then. They went back in the 90s and worked on it more, and they're still estimating less than 50 years until that thing burns through their concrete cocoon that they put on there. And that will waste Eastern Europe there. I mean,
I believe they created fake clouds to help put out Chernobyl too. Just want to put that out
No,
there.
they dropped it on Belarus. Well, you were talking about that, weren't you?
Listen, I just looked this up actually. It's funny because we're talking about the Hongatonga volcano and all the moisture in Africa. You would think more hurricanes would come from that, like that, because those storms come off North Africa over the Cape Verde Islands. There's been significantly less since 2022. There wasn't actually a single hurricane in 2022. I'm seeing two. There was two. There's Beryl, which was this year, and then there was one other in 2023. So none for 2022, one for 2023, one for 2024.
And you know what's funny about that is they were estimating that this hurricane season would have 33 named storms.
Yes,
You remember? They were
yes.
pushing that there was going to be a bunch of hurricanes, kind of fizzled out, but we had a couple powerful ones instead.
I'm wondering, could you cloud seed the Sahara to turn it into a growing area? Or, I mean, it's absolutely massive, so I don't know that any kind of, an irrigation plan to bring seawater in to create atmospheric moisture would be a massive endeavor.
Nah, they would just tap the aquifer there.
Yeah, fresh
There's
water.
no need for
You
any
can
of
just
that.
tap the aquifer and then water comes up.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you can look for sandstone aquifer Africa map, and you could take a look at the amount of
One of the
aquifers
biggest
being-
aquifers in the world there, right?
Yeah, it's the
Aren't they
largest.
doing a big project like this in China too? They have a big area they're trying to grow that's like inhabitable right now.
Sandstone aquifers. Oh, this is not a
Of
specific
Africa.
thing.
You know, it really seems like all the global warming, all of the whole craze, and some of these projects that they're doing. I'm not including the
So that is this
seeding and stuff,
the
but think
Nubian
of-
sandstone aquifers. I'm sorry.
no, that's right.
That's what Gaddafi was tapping to grow 100,000 acres of sorghum as a test project at the very base of Libya, which was also where one of the African megalakes drainage basins was. So they were trying to also, they knew it was going to be raining more, so they were going to capture in a lake fashion the water from there, and they were also having large pipeline systems bringing water after they would pump it up and then take it out to these test areas. And before the invasion, and you know, one thing with the U.S., we blew up all their water infrastructure. We blew up all of the water pipelines. Wow. Which was interesting that you would think we should learn from that.
Do you? So then, is it possible? And I'm just going to throw this out there. Western interests, knowing about food production, reserve currencies, view the expansion of a Saharan grow area as a threat to the reserve currency, the petrodollar. So they destabilize the region, preventing them from creating food in the area.
Until they're the ones who set it up.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
They
But
do
again-
it in Haiti and Guatemala for other reasons.
And think about this.
Bananas.
Why did we destabilize that whole area that we're looking at there? Libya, all the way, all of that has been destabilized. And millions of military-age men left their countries that they would be at. So later, when corporations come in there and move, there's no one going to be fighting any kind of tyranny there because all of their male population is moved.
Almost seems
Yeah,
like
10
it's
million
by
men,
design.
10 million
Not only
standing
that,
armies
they
gone.
moved to a grow zone that they're shutting down, which
Yeah.
is
And then
Europe.
what? The West comes in, takes it over, turns it to a grow zone they control.
That's right.
Right.
Isn't Gaddafi making his own currency too? That
Yes.
we were upset
Gold
about?
backed, yeah.
Right.
And he was working on this aquifer idea.
I didn't know about
He
that.
was doing a lot of things they didn't like.
Man.
Yeah, well, if you really think about what they're doing, it seems like this is kind of where I was going. You have like Bill Gates and all these other people doing these projects, like out in New Mexico, they put sulfur up in the atmosphere and stuff to supposedly block the sun. I think they know that the temperatures are going down, which is going to move grow zones. So Europe is going to be cold like it used to be. And now you have all of these millions of people that they moved out and moved in there. So those people are going to be reducing in population, so to speak. And this is all happening at the same time, but they will be around to take credit for protecting us from global warming.
Right.
I mean, literally, we did this program, just like he's kind of acting like he's protecting you against the next pandemic. It's
Problem,
the same
reaction,
idea.
solution.
Yep.
Yeah, and by admitting that this weather control is possible and admitting that global warming is here, we're kind of putting it into their laps where now they can take it and say, look, the temperature cooled when this grand solar minimum comes in and we're saving you. Now you have to pay us every single year to continue this program so we can keep the planet cool. It's a wealth transfer program, and they're riding on top of these natural cycles in order to manipulate the mind through all these preset narratives like global warming. If I knew the cycle was coming in enough to change weather where every single person would see it in front of their eyes, I would have to make an excuse or build a narrative into that.
Right.
And also
let emergency go to waste. Isn't that what they say?
Yeah, never let.
They build
Same thing with a
fear,
storm.
right?
Yeah,
That's theories
that's
of the
interesting.
storms. If something's brewing and they can take control of it, they're like, you know what, this one's a good one. Let's use this. There's stuff going on they need to push. This is something I want to bring up before I forget.
the one on the left, right? That one, right? Yeah, you got it. That's all the aquifers that are beneath Africa right there.
Yeah, there's a video we should check out in a little bit. It's from a
this is
TV show.
massive.
Yeah.
But so they could. It doesn't seem like the greatest undertaking, if that's the case, to begin reclamation of the Sahara. I pulled up an article on the Great Green Wall, which I'm sure you guys are familiar with. They're planting rows of trees to stop the expansion of the Sahara Desert.
Yeah, just look at Dubai, right? So whether cloud seeding is real or not, they believe it. They have a whole mission control center like NASA acting like they're controlling
Well, cloud seeding is absolutely real. It is not science fiction. I don't even know why people dance around that. It's been done for a very, very, very long time. And that's why I pulled up the article from the AP that says, don't blame cloud seeding for the flood, which is to literally say, of course they're doing it. They do it all the time, but it's not why it flooded. Fine, I don't care what your reason is. They are cloud seeding.
No, they definitely know how. I mean, they proved it in Vietnam that we can take a cell or a storm that's already going to come through and kind of make it dump rain faster or before it was going to. Like, say, if you were doing that to the U.S., I don't know, you might make droughts where it rains in the wrong place or something like that.
In the late 80s, early 90s, they're already worried about so many flights that the Midwest was losing like 30 days of sunlight because of the amount of clouds being formed by the smoke trails.
Right.
And that's
Like 9/11, they said there was literally nothing happening all of a sudden because no planes were flying.
look what happened during lockdowns. They shut the world off, and all of a sudden people could see the Himalaya mountains again.
Right.
It's crazy. Blue skies all of a sudden.
So you're saying that the lockdowns, well, I mean, they wrote this in the New York Times, the world is healing.
Lockdowns opened up natural sky for the first time in a long time.
But what is that because humans weren't driving anymore and there was less pollution?
Perhaps driving, but flying, everything was
Right.
kind of grinded to a halt. Industry, a lot of places stopped.
I noticed the bugs came back.
Bugs came back.
You know about the windshield phenomenon? Yeah. When I was a kid, you'd go drive down the highway and you'd get out of your car and it's covered in bugs. You go on a road trip, you're stopping to get the bugs off. Yep. Not so much anymore.
No.
Well, recently, in the past couple of years, ours covered in bugs.
Yep.
I noticed there's a lot of wildlife here, and I travel everywhere. And that is one thing that I noticed that is different from when I was a kid is that phenomenon, but not just with the bugs, with the animals. When I was a kid, there would be animals every 5 feet on the highway, like literally everywhere. I don't see that anymore.
Now they're saying the next great lockdown might be the climate lockdown.
Oh, for sure. They want climate lockdowns.
But I don't know how you muster that up.
Slide 8.
Slide 8.
Well, I just wanted to show you this one here because it's relevant. It's occurring right now. So we're coming into this high solar activity period, and that's if you go to Syslo, you can find the sunspot average count daily on this one, and that's that chart right there on the left with the yellow. And at the bottom, this is off Dr. Roy Spencer's site at the University of Alabama, Huntsville. So you can see how as the solar activity is increasing, the temperature is increasing. And if you go to the next slide, I kind of zoomed in on both of those. There you go.
Wow.
So we got solar activity increasing, ramping up, and you saw massive ramp up. And then
it's higher than the past decade plus.
yeah. And this is where everybody got it wrong. So every forecaster out there, 0% were correct on how high the solar activity was. I was also incorrect calling that we were heading into a cooling period. But it seems whatever was going on, we're at that transition phase where nobody got it right. And perhaps this solar cycle 26, now space agencies are going, oh, we're coming into very, very low solar activity predicted for sunspot counts through this solar cycle 26.
Do you think there's a possibility of the big one, the solar flare that fries all of our electronics?
I am super glad you asked that. Slide 4, please. Slide 4. Slide 4. I was already thinking about you.
Here we go. Uh-oh, this looks scary.
There's a lot of red.
Should I be
here.
scared? There's a lot of red.
What's going on right now as we're in this room?
Yeah, so the top X flares from this year so far. So the X9 was just yesterday, and you saw the aurora around here too. Last night we were outside.
That
We
was
saw
crazy.
Everywhere.
We were outside.
Northern Lights in West Virginia.
We were outside the hotel. Some of these pictures are insane that we got last night. Unreal.
Yeah,
Really,
Brian and I were outside.
in
yeah,
West Virginia.
He
That's
and I were outside
crazy.
last
The
night.
pictures
And
I
just
saw
keep it-
nuts pink in the sky everywhere.
Keep in mind on this chart, so the Carrington event is like an X, let's say 40, because they don't know whether it's 35 to 48
warned
is
you.
kind of the estimate. But look at all these. These are all little in comparison to
Yeah.
that. So what we're talking about that would hurt society, satellites, wires, would have to be like an X40 or above. And that isn't, that's just not there. But these can
getting
affect
bigger.
human health.
Yeah, well,
getting
not,
bigger.
yeah, not only that, and I
They
got
are getting bigger, but notice the months on them too. They're getting larger, but notice the months that they're occurring.
Right.
So we have these groupings of May, and then we got September, October on the largest ones, and you notice they're coming up in scale. So I thought to myself, if you go to the next slide, I thought to myself, I'm going to go take a look at the solar geometry. So this is in May, and the Earth is on the other side of the sun, and we got the squaring planets. They're starting to form their square. So Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune, they're beginning to get into this final configuration, which we'll have at the end of the month here. So if the largest of the flares are coming as that same configuration's forming, but the Earth's on the other side of the sun, and then continue to the next slide, then here we are at the end of this month. We're going to be in the middle of that field. So my conjecture is that if we were, I'm saying if, not predictive, but if following the trend, larger solar flares would be occurring in these next 3 weeks just based on the ramp up and where we sat and how the outer gas giants were forming in their square formation. And will we see electromagnetic changes on the planet? And this is why governments are preparing for so much. Because if we are going to experience an electromagnetic difference of change, your perception of reality is going to change.
Yo, this is wild. I just Google searched. This is from the last night.
Yeah.
Northern Lights in West Virginia.
Yeah. Right.
So we are not that far north. I mean,
X9, now what if it's an X11? Then you're going to see this and it'll be moving
You
this
say
time.
your perception of reality is going to change. What do you mean?
I mean, just the way that humanity views the meat suit that decodes this construct in front of you will change in a different magnetic field. You talked about cymatics. You change the frequency,
Yeah.
shape changes on the plate.
Yeah.
So change the magnetic field, and then how does your brain, that the lobes of your brain electrically connected, and that electrical connection is going to vibrate higher? How's that going to change how the information flows between and what you optically see or hear?
they did experiments where they put this helmet on people and blasted them with massive electromagnetic waves, and they said they felt the presence of God.
Yes.
What if there is, I don't know, an X40 that fries all the electronics and then just shocks people's brains into feeling the presence of God?
We were just lifted.
What would that civilization turn into? What would we turn into?
I am glad you brought this up.
That's wild.
He's on it.
I'm glad you brought this up because we're entering in the age of, I don't know if you know what the hydrogel platform is. It's basically nanotech, right? So you can affect nanotech with electromagnetic waves, and they're doing experiments on rats and on like flies and stuff. So I get that that's not human, but they can control the behavior of either the rat or the flies, from everything to making them excited sexually, hungry, not hungry, mad, angry, all of that stuff. So if you can imagine, some of the conspiracy theories out there talking about 5G and all of these other things, think about a world that has less of a magnetic field. So in other words, the background magnetic field of the Earth is not as strong as it normally is. It would be a lot easier to use these programs to manipulate people into all kinds of things. And like I said, everything from hunger to anything.
I feel like
Yeah.
the hunger, the starvation part's not so much there, although in some parts of the world it is. But in terms of people losing their minds, you could say lockdowns had a lot of a profound effect on people's mental health, but it just seems like people have lost it.
Well, and like what he just brought up, you could literally make someone feel like they're having a divine experience.
Yeah.
And then think about this. If you're looking up at the sky, and this is probably what a lot of ancient people, this is probably why a lot of the petroglyphs are the way they are. They were looking up at the sky, seeing all this stuff, and this is a small flare. Imagine, like I said, an X40 or plus, what kind of auroras you would be seeing. Maybe the dancing squatter man on the
squatter
poles
man,
or something
definitely.
like
Well,
that.
I've noticed already just online over the last day, there's like mixed feelings of what people are going through. Like some people are feeling sick, some people are feeling like enlightened, you know, so people are on different levels. Everyone's different. And like you said, the magnetic field is much weaker than it used to be. So these flares that are 9s and 10s are actually like much higher in comparison to what they would be if it was, what, 6,000 years ago?
Yeah.
When the magnetic fields weren't that affected?
Well, when the KP
Tighter,
index goes
stronger.
up, they have a chart somewhere that shows the interactions of people. They have heart palpitations, all kinds of stuff. People with
the physical
pacemakers
effects.
and different stuff are in danger when the KP level is at 9. So you would just imagine massive amounts of solar radiation coming in when there is no magnetic field, when it's collapsing, and right now it is. And we know that the last time that happened, like I said, about 42,000 years ago, Neanderthal disappeared.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Culture War podcast. We're live every Friday, 10 a.m. to noon, so subscribe and come hang out.